Okay, all in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's read 7A, please. I'm sorry, 5A.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 16, Section 1659 through 1666, to create the Police Advisory and Review Committee.
Okay. We have some ordinances on first reading for which we heard last week in committee. 6A through E. Are there any questions or clarifications at this time? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, we have some resolutions. 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing the acceptance of a portion of the Riverwalk identified as 750 Latitude Circle, tax map number 135N8005, by quitclaim deed and substantially the form attached from Cameron Harbor LLC.
Okay, thank you. B, please.
A resolution declaring surplus of 3 properties located at 2005, 2007, and 2009 Mountain Street, further identified as tax map parcel number 146CG020, 146CG0119, and 146CG0118.
Ms. Williams, would you please come and give us some clarification on what this is and what it means?
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to do that. I think there are 9 of these, if you would take one and pass it on. So today, what the resolution is asking you to do is surplus these 3 properties. The surplus process is one of many steps that we have to go through to get to this point. But the chairman asked me to give a brief overview of where we are. So you're going to receive a copy of this. The first thing you'll see, I made this as brief as possible. This program that we are attempting to pilot has literally hundreds of steps that have to be taken in order for us to make it successful. But these are some of the big chunks at the moment. I think the first thing to note is that these 3 properties are back tax properties. That means that the previous owner was unwilling or unable to pay their property taxes for a period of 3 years. When that happens, the property becomes owned, quote unquote, by the city and by the county, because most people, when they don't pay their city taxes, they're unable to pay their county taxes. So that's really important. The program is for these 3 properties that are city, county-owned properties. I went to the county commission to ask them to convey their ownership of the property. They own the property 50-50, as is always the case with back tax properties, and they agreed to do that. The properties need to be rezoned, and for those of you who know a bit about real estate or development, a bank is not going to lend you money on a piece of property that is improperly zoned for the type of financing you're getting. So the properties are zoned R1 because back in 2004, there was an ordinance passed that basically says if a duplex is vacant for 100 days or more, it is automatically downzoned. The thought was that the downzoning of those properties would, I think the intent was to improve the neighborhoods, but what it has done is to create hundreds of properties that are R1, meaning they cannot go back to the original use that they were built for, which is multifamily. In some instances, very rare instances, someone has taken a duplex, knocked a hole in the common wall, and turned that into a single-family house for rent. So essentially what happens is it's great for larger families who can't find somewhere to rent because it allows larger families to have a place. By and large, the few that have been converted to single family still remain rental property. So what we need to do is to rezone the property to allow for an owner occupant to live on one side and then rent the other side to a low to moderate income tenant, which of course creates 2 housing units that are affordable, and of course takes boarded up properties, which these 3 are boarded, and puts them back into use, contributing use to the neighborhood. So we went before Planning Commission yesterday to ask for the upzoning, and it will come before you, I believe June 11th is the day that will come before you for your vote on that. So those items that are in green, those are kind of the city operational things, among others, that we have to do to get this far. And the 3 that are in blue is just an oversimplification of the steps that will happen next. So once the properties are rezoned, if you choose to do that, to upzone the duplexes back to duplex status, then someone will fully renovate the duplexes, inside and out, landscape, the whole 9. That property, but the city will not do that, by the way. That's not the city's role. The city will give that developer, let's call him a developer to make it simple, the city will give that developer up to $20,000 in a no interest, no payment loan, at which time that would be repaid when the duplex is sold to the owner occupant. So the question may be, why are we doing that? We're doing that because we want to generate investment in a neighborhood and a part of the city where very little investment has been made. This is a modified version of a strategy that I developed and led the implementation of in ML King, Jefferson Heights, and in Bushtown several years ago. So we know that this works. We have developers, as you well know, that are developing all over the place, steep slopes and other places, but they're not in Avondale. They're not in Avondale. So we want to demonstrate that if someone brings their money to Avondale, particularly these 3 properties, that it's a good return on their investment. So that's why we're offering the 20% no interest, no payment loan to developers to entice them to take a chance with us on this particular block. Once those properties are sold, the person who is buying it, this is number 5, that individual is required per the deed, is written in the deed, and this is not uncommon, we've done this, I did this hundreds of times before I came to the city. It's in the deed that in order to receive that down payment assistance, you must occupy the property for a certain period of time. In this case, it's 7 years. Yes, 7 years, thank you, Council. So the question is, how do you police it? Our department, as you guys know, we do compliance for hundreds, if not thousands, of properties that have different types of deed restrictions. So we do an annual review of this program, just like we do with the thousands of other properties that we handle compliance for. And again, that $20,000 is given to the homeowner to, again, entice them to come to the neighborhood early and to stay there for 7 years. If they do so, that $20,000 is turned into equity that they do not have to pay back at the end of the 7-year term. Any questions?
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you. Conversations that were brought up through zoning, they said the other day that this process that we're trying to exercise could be illegal or that we are not able to do. Could you elaborate on that, or have you heard anything that can change or overthrow this from the state?
Illegal? No. No, it's not illegal.
Okay.
This program, if you want the money,
Mm-hmm.
you will perform per this agreement, and if there's a deed attachment to it. Otherwise, you can't receive the $20,000, or you receive it, and then if you don't adhere to the deed, the requirements in the deed, much like anybody else's mortgage, if any of us who have mortgages don't adhere to the conditions of the mortgage, then you have consequences, and in this case, the consequence would be that $20,000 is due.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then, exactly. And then one thing that definitely appreciate what you said about, we're not getting investment in this area, a lot of people and younger people that I talk to on a daily basis are looking to move to whether it's North Shore, East Chattanooga, not East Chattanooga, East Brainerd, or, you know, out to the outer skirts and not come into that community. And I know we're trying to build up home ownership in that community. The other thing was that if a person does not accept the $20,000 investment or say, hey, well, I just want to buy the property, I know I have been sending people to Ms. Goldberg, several people, whether they're developers or whether they're constituents looking to buy a home, maybe have some credit issues or maybe have financial issues. And it's my understanding that you are keeping a list of those people so that we can definitely roll this plan out to them once it's available.
Yes, thank you for that. We have a rolling information sheet, database, if you will, of interested buyers, owner occupants, and interested tenants. We will turn that information over to the developer because the developer is the one who's responsible for selling the property. We don't sell the property.
Exactly.
And the owner occupant would have to conform with any requirements that the mortgage holder has. So if they're using First Tennessee, SunTrust, Synovus, whoever they're using, they would have to adhere to whatever loan requirements they have.
And if this one pilot program worked, since it's our first time with these 3 duplexes, if it was to work and start some investment into some areas that people are not so likely to come invest in, will we look to do it in other areas or even spread it out even more throughout the community if the neighborhoods
Sure.
are
Well,
aware to it?
yes, sir. That would be our hope because we have a tremendous amount of staff time involved in getting us this far. We've also met with a number of lenders to make sure that the programs and the way we write everything is consistent with the way they do business. So we have some lenders who've been part of it, as well as some neighborhood folks. So our hope is that once a developer or developers see that you can, in fact, make a return on your investment in this neighborhood, that it will start to snowball. And our other hope is that where there are landlords that have not been responsible and certainly not contributing to the neighborhood, and some of them are like, they're just not committed to maintain their property properly.
Right.
That this could be the impetus for them wanting to just go on and sell their property and exit from their investment, in which time they could decide if they want to put their property in the program.
And right now, Ms. Goldberg,
Sandra Gober.
she works in your office, and if it's anyone in the audience right now that are looking to invest or even be a part of investing in Avondale, East Chattanooga, these areas, they can reach out to her and sit down and talk with her to get some type of understanding because they want to take a chance in this community. They can still call right now to be a part of that, correct?
Sure. Yeah, because we have all kinds of programs for different types of census tracts. So we can help them with a variety of programs that we can tell them about that may be of interest to them.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Byrd, followed by Councilman Ledford.
Thank you. How can we ensure that the unoccupied side won't be used for short-term vacation rentals?
Well, these units fall outside the STVR footprint, so that's one. We do annual reviews. My experience has been when, and I'm talking about very established neighborhoods, established at this point, neighborhoods, very popular, high rent neighborhoods. When your neighbor knows that you receive some sort of funding to do what you were supposed to do, there's a lot of self-policing going on because people know that you received down payment assistance to perform at a certain level. But the number one thing is the ordinance, the STVR ordinance, does not fall within this footprint.
So one of the things we learned from the enforcement department is that if I rent something for 30 days or more, it doesn't fall within short-term vacation rental. and therefore I can side skirt the law. And I just want to make sure that, that we meet the need we really have.
Sure. Well, but maybe my staff used the wrong phrasing. It's not short skirting the law. It is the law. If you you rent for 30 days or more, it's not a short-term vacation rental.
Right, and that's my point. How do we ensure that this property is used the way we really, for a home, long-term for
Yeah.
people? Well, the need is great.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say again is we do compliance on thousands of units, and we typically do those annually. And if anyone were offering up their property as a STVR, whether it's in this program or not, then the STVR enforcement would come into play.
All right, so if I last question, Mr. Chair, so if I advertise my property for longer than 30 days, I can advertise anywhere, right? So I can
Sure, yeah.
advertise on Airbnb, but it doesn't fall within our rules because it's greater than 30 days.
I think that's a state law. I would yield to the attorney on that, but
Well, my point is, I want to make sure that if we're giving, I think these great, I love the program. I think it's great. I just want to make sure that it's used the way it's intended, and that's
Sure.
to give people homes that are affordable and are quality.
yes.
And unfortunately, we have citizens that try to do things differently. I just want to
Sure.
make sure what the protections are.
Yes. So what the owner occupant is required to do is to have a 1-year lease with their tenant,
Good.
right? So that's one of the HUD requirements we borrowed.
Good.
Is that
All
we
right.
have to show that they have to show us that they have a 1-year lease, because obviously folks who are looking for housing, and there are plenty of them who are looking for affordable housing, they need housing, they need secure housing.
Right.
And a 1-year lease gives them that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, Donna.
Hello.
Deja vu
All over again.
all over again. So my question is based in, after you buy it from, I guess, the city, you receive your $20,000, you pay off the mortgage, go
Yes.
past your 7 years, your $20,000 is forgiven. If you go to resell that, what happens to the program? Does it stay in place, or is that now a different ball game?
Very good
Because you've
question.
gained your R2.
Yeah, you've gained your R2, and so that is where there may be a question as to what is legal, because once the carrot and the stick we have is that $20,000, right? So folks are going to adhere to the program because of that $20,000.
Right.
Whether or not one could, we could put a deed restriction that says it always has to be owner occupied. The challenge there in the market is someone going to come to this neighborhood and be one of the early adopters with the understanding that they're the only person to whom they could sell that property 7 years from now is someone who also wants to do the program. But if we were to roll the money over to the subsequent buyer, then the program would continue.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's, again, I echo Dr. Burge's comment. I think it's a great program.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we voted on some of these properties at Planning Commission yesterday. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, but how do we keep that program going and keep that owner on one side and
Yes.
not it basically revert back in less than a decade?
Sure, yeah.
So-
We could offer that same $20,000 to the new buyer. And also, this is, future talking, but probably within 7 years, I think people will have a different opinion of renters, because there are a lot of very strong renters in the market, as some of our prices of rental units have shown in other parts of the city. So my guess is that in 7 years, folks will be much more acceptable of renters.
Hopefully. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Donna, is there going to be a spec sheet for the developers? I mean, what I consider fixed up and what you consider fixed up may be two different things.
Sure. So Kenny, who you know well, has been an advocate for us being the design and construction police on that. My opinion is this: one, they have to bring the property up to code, right? That's a given. Not all duplexes are up to code. And then number two, they have to sell the property. So I feel like, particularly for these three, that the market will dictate what needs to be done to the units. So they'll have to be competitive. But we certainly,
I heard you say complete with landscaping.
oh, that'll be a provision that we'll put, yes.
So there will be at least some specs,
Yes, sir.
I suppose,
Yes, sir.
for renovating these.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is it 20% of hard cost that you're eligible up to, or is it?
Oh, good question. It's 20% of the whole project. So it's pre-development, development, and soft costs.
Okay, so anything that a developer may have associated with that, even,
Within reason.
well, even their, what they might consider their profit margin, or is that just, that's where, when I say
Yes,
hard
sir.
cost? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then, is there gonna be any kind of restrictions on the owner that buys it as to what they can rent that unit for?
Yes, thank you for that. The rent that can be charged is the same rent that we use for the pilots, up to the 80% of AMI.
Hey, okay.
I don't know that these three units at this time would rent at that rate, but it will definitely be income restricted, the rental rates.
Okay,
They won't, I don't think, garner 80%
okay,
AMI rent this early.
thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I sure wish CNE would follow your steps and making sure that these deed restrictions are adhered to on properties. That's a whole nother conversation. In order for us to truly target the group, the demographic of people that we would really love to become homeowners, have you looked outside of just the traditional ways of lending underwriters to make sure that those individuals qualify for this program?
That they would qualify for a mortgage?
Right.
Yeah. No, because this is just Donald Williams personally. I think the process for approving people for a mortgage ensures that people can not only get in, but stay in the house. And I have seen programs where people get in a house and 12, 18, 24 months later, they can't stay in a house. Now, that having been said, First Tennessee, who's given us, they've been here a couple times and given us $70,000 to do some of the work that we're doing. They have a really good program where they work with folks whose credit scores are less than 620. They work with those folks, and they are having a lot. Councilman Byrd, you had a number of folks at your event. They've had very good success getting folks who may otherwise not be eligible for a mortgage, getting those folks eligible and tying to that pre-mortgage education and post-mortgage education. So I think First Tennessee is going to be a good partner for some folks who may not have a 620 credit score.
I sure hope so after that lawsuit that they just recently got
Well,
this past year.
that's the reason that they
But there's
gave
a,
us $70,000 and
so
came up with
on
this
here
new
I
mortgage
noticed,
program.
in bold, you have here that it's up to $20,000 down
Correct.
payment. So what's going to determine the amounts that
It's
each individual
20%.
would
20% of the purchase price. So if it sells for 80, they'd get 16,000. If it sells for 100 or more, they would get 20,000.
I get 20,000 because I can see someone like Ethan Collier. He can purchase this and say, okay, I want to be a part of this program, and then he can come out of pocket and say, I'm just going to pay you for $20,000.
Yeah.
So not just he, but it's other people who, may have that kind of cash and just go ahead and pay it off.
Oh, you mean as the developer?
Right? They just to get it. Just
Sure.
To get
No, I
it,
think
and
you're
then
right.
really-
I think, and Councilman Henderson kind of sort of alluded to this. I think we're going to have developers who don't have time to get our $20,000, frankly, because it would take us time through our process to get them a check for $20,000, I think they will know how to buy it, renovate it, market it, and possibly even get it sold in a pretty short period of time, and they probably won't even take our $20,000.
Absolutely. So it's not an option. They can say, we want to buy the property, but we don't want your money. They have that as an option, right? Or they specifically have to take your money.
Oh, no. Because the 20,000 they get from us, they give it back to us when it's sold, the developer. So we're giving them $20,000 when they close on the property if they want us to. And then when they sell it to that owner occupant, that $20,000 comes back to us, and we make it available to the owner occupant. So I would not be surprised if, particularly as the program gets successful, that some developers, because they can renovate a duplex so quickly, they don't have time to go through the city's bureaucracy to get a check for $20,000.
Well, there's this organization that's really successful out of Atlanta, and I've brought them here a couple of times in Chattanooga. It's called NACA, and I know you're familiar with it because you used to live there.
Yeah.
So those who credit scores may not be the 580 or so, but they use other things that can help, determine if they can qualify to buy a home. And everybody who's went through this program has been successful. They're still homeowners. They own, it's been years. It's not 18 months. But as we know, life happens a lot of times, and things can happen. We
Sure.
can't control that. But I would like to see if we could maybe add them in as a partner when they go through what's her name, Miss Sandra.
Yeah.
That, okay, they may not qualify to go through this program or to go through First Tennessee Bank.
Sure.
So-
We'd be happy to have them. And let me be clear, the city's not telling anybody who to get a mortgage from. That's not, we haven't had an RFP for preferred lenders. It's just, if you're interested, you have a few, there are many people from whom you can try to get a mortgage. We just met with a few mortgage folks to make sure that the language in our deeds don't conflict with the general way that mortgages are written nowadays. So we would be more than happy to talk to NACA and encourage other folks to do so.
Okay, and two more other questions. So just for clarity, because I done heard it in the community and just need to address it. So we're not giving people $20,000 to go get a home. No, for just a random person on the street. You got $20,000 here, you can get this duplex, and we're just putting poor people in housing, and it's so much I've heard about this, but I just want to make sure for clarity.
Let me be clear. This program is for the owner occupant of one of the 3 duplexes. So if they buy it, we will give them 20%. That would be their down payment. Up to $20,000, and then the balance of it they would need to get with the lender. That's specific to these 3 properties. However, THDA and others, which folks can find out about through C&E, do have grant programs where it's across the city. It's not just specific to our properties, and I think it's up to $15,000 that they can get.
Will these 3 properties be income restricted?
These properties, the rental side, yes. The owner occupant side, no.
Okay, so anybody can buy the property. It's not income restricted, none of that.
No, and I know Daisy, are y'all staring at the back of my head? I know this isn't supposed to be the duplex session, but we talked about income restricting the buyer, but frankly, we need to show that the program is successful and that we get momentum. And we felt like if we limit it to certain income levels, that it would take a long time to get that momentum. However, I fully expect that even without that restriction, that at least 2 of the 3 may go to folks who are at or below the 80%. And just to remind everybody, 80% of a household of 1 is $34,550 right now. And depending upon the price of the duplexes, when that owner occupant uses the rent that they're getting for the other side, they could be a qualified buyer with the lender.
Which is, I think it's a great program. Just want to make sure that our citizens understand exactly what it is, because we will hear all kind of stuff. And I asked specifically about if they will be income restricted, because once that Caucasian person move in, that makes an abundance amount of money, they're gonna start talking about gentrifying. The community has been gentrified, and for whatever reason, some of those poor communities that's mainly black, they identify the word gentrification as being black removal, which is, that's not what
Correct.
that word means. But I
Correct.
just wanna make sure that everybody has a full understanding of what we're doing.
Yes, and if folks have any questions, after we get through all the approvals, we will finalize the program guidelines and make those available. And if anybody has any questions in the meantime, they can reach me or Sandra Gober. We'd be happy to answer any questions that they have. Thank you.
That's it? Okay, Councilman Henderson.
I'm not through. I forgot a question. Will we be listed as a second lien holder on the banknote?
Yes, we'll be in second position.
Okay. And then how will the developers, once these properties become surplus, what's the process for notifying or obtaining one of these properties?
Yes, sir. We'll have a process by which, because as Councilman Byrd said, we have folks who have expressed an interest, and so we are developing the criteria for participation. So, for instance, if someone said, and someone has, I grew up in the neighborhood and I want to be a developer. Well, that's awesome. But if that person has no experience in construction or development, we're not going to entrust them with this process. So they need experience or to partner. It doesn't have to be them by themselves. They need to partner with someone with construction or development experience, and they need to demonstrate that they have the financial wherewithal, either through their own funds or by partnering with the bank to get the project done for the 80% that they
Okay,
need to
let me
bring.
back up. Is there a bid process?
There will be an RFP process, yes.
Okay. So bids, requests for purchase will go out to individuals that have shown interest?
Yes.
Okay.
Or anybody who calls us, or
In other
we'll
words,
we'll
it'll be
pu- we'll
published in the
publicize it
paper.
like we always do.
That's
Thank
it,
you.
Councilman?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, look like that is it. Madam Clerk, let's go to 7C in finance, please.
A resolution authorizing the city treasurer to renew blanket purchase order number 532669 for merchant card services with FIS Link to Gov for 12 months through June 30, 2020, with no renewals remaining in the amount of $175,000.
D, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Travis R. Kazmierczak as Special Police Officer Unarmed for the Mayor's Office and Department of Outdoor Chattanooga to do special duty as prescribed here and subject to certain conditions.
E, please.
A resolution authorizing the appointment of Philip Grimes as Special Police Officer Unarmed for the Mayor's Office in the Department of Outdoor Chattanooga to do special duty as prescribed here and subject to certain conditions.
Next one, please.
A resolution authorizing an increase in expenditure limit for the existing contract with Carashaw Technology Corporation to provide a solid software licensing and support for each contract year beginning May 24, 2018, and ending May 23, 2019, from $199,718.68 for a total increase amount of $5,000 for a total amount of $204,718.68.
Thank you. Item number G was read last week under planning, so we will move on to N under youth and family development.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Youth and Family Development to apply for and if approved, accept a one-time grant from National Parks and Recreation Association for mobile play trailers in the amount of $20,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That concludes that part. Now we will move on to a departmental report by the Police Department. Chief?
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Chief. Which, oh, okay, overhead, sir. Is it up here?
Wait for it.
Oh, okay.
It's good. It's a beautiful day. How are you, sir?
Yeah,
We'll stall appropriately.
yeah.
Interpretive, sir, so I need a theme before I can really begin on that. I'm good either way, though. Let me stretch first. I'm feeling it nowadays. Okay, there we are. The format for today's report is the same one we follow similarly, where we go over just what your agency, what your police department has done in the last little while within each one of the pillars of the police department. Our first focus in community and problem-solving policing. We'll go through each one of these individually but quickly, but if you have any questions or need some more information on each one of them, or any one of them, please stop me. We continue to do our support relative to the Special Olympics Area 4, which is what Chattanooga falls in for Special Olympics efforts, including we did a few Tip-A-Cop where we support the servers in the restaurants. We did one at Chewy's and one at Texas Roadhouse. Participated in the Polar Plunge, myself and Chief Hyman, who suckered me into jumping in first and then made fun of me on Facebook, but I appreciate that. We also participated in a new event that they brought to Chattanooga, which is called a Throwdown, which is a rowing competition where 8-person teams row 26.2 miles, or a marathon. They use it as a fundraising event, so I managed to scrounge together 8 members of the police department or their families. I shamed my wife into participating. Chief Scruggs, Chief Tucker both participated, as well as several other members of the department. While we did not finish first, because there was never a hope in that going to happen, but we did take most spirited team. So I think that's consistent with who we are as well. But all of that coupled together, as well as the torch runs activities, we raised over $8,000 for Special Olympics so far this year. Some other community events participation. We participated in the Community Kitchen Chili Cook-Off, where Captain Jerry Sutton won. I think there was a fix, but I'm going to let it go. Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults. We did a walk a mile in her shoes. And if you will note, I saved this. If we could all take note of Chief Scruggs' feet. I love you. I really do, man. He actually, in support of the, don't shake your head, Councilman, it was a worthy effort and probably extremely painful. He did walk an entire mile wearing those shoes to raise awareness for our partnership with the Partnership for Families and Children's Services and everything else. So it was a great fundraiser for Victim Support Services as well. Great community event. We continued with the Children's Advocacy Center, distributing door hangers for them just to raise awareness for their programs and their needs as well. And then also supported in a Clifton Hills Carruthers Park cleanup with Chairman Oglesby. We brought our cadets out, worked through cleaning up the neighborhood, engaging with members of the community, standing around talking. It was a great event. I managed to slide in sideways for the last 10 minutes. I did not pick up any trash or get wet because it did come in the rain. But overall, I think it was a great event that morning. The community really appreciated everyone's turnout to help them. Into some school activities. We participated in Donuts with Dudes at Eastside Elementary. And it's basically where members of the community, including police officers, we went down there, ironically involving donuts, to just sit around and talk with the kids at the school, the young men in the school that morning. And if I can, I'd like to read an email that we got in response to that, just a short excerpt from it. I think there were more than 20 or more officers here this morning. The students were so excited and still talking about breakfast at 2 this afternoon. Also, a few of our teachers were brought to tears because of the community response and the kindness towards our boys. Great memories were made, and we truly appreciate all the officers who attended. So obviously we're going to continue to participate in that event. We think it's just an easy sit down to continue to engage the youth in our community. We participated in Orchard Knob Middle School visit with CPD. We brought out members of our SWAT, our K-9, 20 students participated in that as well. And then also the Orchard Knob Middle School State of Our Children, Chief Scruggs and Sergeant Josh May also helped participate in this event just to get into sessions with these young men and some young women on the other side. I don't believe we had any CPD personnel in those breakout sessions, but we plan to next year. Just, again, engage the kids, help them meet and engage their police officers, and just walk through that journey together. We also did our normal participation as we do every year in Bike to School Day at both CSAS and Normal Park. We participated in, for the first time, the LEU Speed Trap, partnered with Hand Up, Handle, and Bar, and it raises funds for fallen officers' family. One thing I would like to bring particular attention to is we participated in a minority recruitment fair. This was held at the Urban League. They were kind enough and gracious enough to partner with us so that we could continue in that deliberate, concerted effort that we've done to increase our minority recruiting within the city of Chattanooga and your police department. One person showed up. We had one person show up for that minority recruitment fair, and if I can explain to you how much we worked to get that out, it was promoted on both radio and television. We received a $1,500 anonymous donation to help us in those efforts. We had over 100 spots on both Power 94 and Groove 93, as well as stories on Channel 9 and Channel 3 and social media postings. We need help. We need the community's help. We need council's help. We need everyone's help to continue to get the word out to help increase our minority recruiting efforts. I will say one victory that we are seeing in that is your current academy right now has a total of 22 cadets in it. Of those 22 cadets, 36% are female. That's probably the highest percentage of female cadets that I've seen in my career. And they're impressive. I went to OC Spray Day the other day, and many of them were far tougher than anyone else standing there, and I certainly wasn't going to wade into the middle of that either. So the deliberate recruiting efforts, while we're seeing the success in gender recruitment, we are not seeing it in race recruitment. So we ask council and anyone else that hears it, please help us. That Each One Reach One program is still in effect. We will continue to do the minority recruiting fairs. We will continue to get the word out. But if you see the opportunity to share and spread that, please do. We would greatly appreciate that. Into the next pillar in intelligence-led policing. Relative to the first side is the gun team. We did have 6 law enforcement agencies from the Carolina area come down just to see how Chattanooga does their gun crime investigations. High Point, North Carolina, which is basically the focused deterrence capital of the world. Winston-Salem, Raleigh, Greensboro, Durham, and Forsyth and Durham sheriff's offices participated as well. It's indicative of the national respect that law enforcement has for how Chattanooga has developed its gun crime program. CPD cited as best practice in the NIBLM implementation at IECP for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. We are now set, I confirmed this at my last board meeting with the ATF in Huntsville, where we went to the grand opening of the Correlation Center there, where coincidentally Director Brandon with the ATF pointed out Chattanooga's efforts specifically in his speech for the commencement and grand opening of that structure to national media. But that ATF, they will now be funding one full-time, an FTE, for a NIBIN technician for CPD. So we are working deliberately to seek outside funding to help the city councils, the mayors, our budgetary efforts to do everything we can, but minimize the impact financially it has on us, and the ATF saw fit to help us in that regards. The CPD gun team will be featured in the 5th edition of 13 Critical Tasks by Pete Gagliardi, who's considered the leading expert in gun crimes investigations across the nation, and that is resulting in a number of our cases reaching adjudication as well as federal indictments. Another part is the Real-Time Intelligence Center. We had 390 events investigated, followed up on, or monitored by Arctic staff in that quarter period. It resulted in a 46% of the time with usable video evidence. Some of the highlighted parts, the public safety cameras used 80% of that time. We recently, unfortunately, suffered a homicide on the Dodson Avenue area. As a result, we obtained video of the homicide itself from privately owned cameras. The use of that and the networking into that led us to understand how much our real-time intelligence cameras captured. So outside of that, we were able to get that photograph off of your real-time intelligence cameras, which positively ID'd the suspect within minutes. We knew who to look for, and we got investigators on it, and we've had an arrest made in that. It also led to the successful arrest of 3 robbery suspects within 12 hours of the robbery. We often see in robberies that they come in series or patterns and can go on for days before something breaks that cycle of activity. And in our opinion, there is no greater way to break that cycle of activity than to put them in handcuffs, because they got to stop because they're committing violence and hurting our community. So within 12 hours of the initial, we had 3 suspects in custody on that one. And then also our gang unit located on another shots fired call, because of the real-time intelligence center cameras, captured a suspect vehicle, got it out into patrol, and the information to our gang unit. We apprehended 3 suspects and recovered 1 gun. In gun crimes, the term that we use often is to break the shooting cycle. Data has now shown that in certain circumstances, when a firearm has been involved in 2 connected incidents, it is 60% more likely to be involved in a third within months. And they're actually starting to tighten that down a little bit on your ATF numbers to show that that rate of recidivism of the use of the firearm itself is even greater than we originally thought. And the ATF is working through those numbers now through their NIBIN system. So that's where we really believe in what we're seeing in the Arctic. The proposed capital, I believe, coming into next year is to ask for sufficient funding to outfit another 5 cameras within the Arctic system. Because we were able to be as responsible as we could be within our budget for the current operating year right now, we are seeking and getting approval for funding to purchase 3 more cameras out of our existing operating budget now. We believe that's how important they are. That's how much we believe in the evidence that they bring to the department to solve these types of crimes. So we're going to step outside of just using capital and get into some operating budget if we can in our savings to scale the program out as much as we can. As I've mentioned before several times, your homicide clearance rate for the police department, because it is an extremely strong marker of the level of trust and cooperation that the community has with its police department. In 2016, our clearance rate was 40%. 2017, it was 70. I know you've heard me speak last year that at the end of 2018, we closed out with an 83% clearance rate. The national average is 60. So far in 2019, we have a 91% clearance rate. So the trust, the communication, the cooperation, it's there. They're talking to officers, and our officers are using what we learn together to successfully track down and prosecute people that will harm and kill other members of our community. Relative to focused deterrence, these are the number of firearms that had been taken into property in 2018 with a total of 989. In 2018, seized from a defendant was 728, or 74% of all firearms. And in 2019, while it's a smaller number in comparison, it stays about the same percentage and proportions. So what we're looking at, the one that I would like to highlight is that 2018 seized from defendants. That is 728 incidents with a firearm that an officer took a gun off someone in illegal possession of that firearm, taken from the person. That's not luck. Focused deterrence is our intelligence and investigations to understand that small number that we've sat around and talked about for years here that commits a disproportionate percentage of the violence in our community. And using those investigative leads and that intelligence, it comes down to being aware of who is most likely to be armed and then lawfully stopping them. It's knowledge and then the courage to do so is how I sum up what the officers are doing. So the focused deterrence efforts that we're seeing relative to the seizures of firearms it's showing an impact, and it's also staying consistent. And lastly, let's see, we hosted the USPCA Region 22 Spring Trials. Agencies from Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama participated in the annual canine trials and certification for their partners. And as a result, those 4 canine teams that certified in this trial, the one on the left, he actually took top dog overall, beat out every other team. Every single one of those 4 finished in the top 5 in their respective certifications. The only other individual that finished in the top 5 is from a North Georgia law enforcement agency that trains with our canine unit. So apparently there was a little bit of transference there, and he got one of the awards. He's actually a really good canine officer, so we're lucky to have him train with us. But that is the end of my presentation because it's always healthy to end on pictures of dogs.
I don't see any questions, Chief. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, council.
Now, as the chief leaves, we will now move into our fiscal year 20 budget presentation. Budget presentation. Yes, if you would. Councilman Burrs, would you do me a favor?
This is a new layout. Called to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. There are no minutes. This is the first meeting. And what we're going to be doing today is presenting the budget for fiscal year 2020. Beginning next week, the county council will be having education sessions beginning at 10 o'clock every morning in the council meeting room, not here in the large room. We will be posting our schedule up on the internet with the disclaimer that because council members are going to have free rein to ask whatever questions they have, the schedule may change a bit. What you do need to know is that right now, a public hearing is scheduled for June 11th at 6 o'clock. We welcome all people to sit and listen. Please understand, between now and then, these are education sessions for council members only. Everybody's welcome to sit in, but there will be no questions asked at that point. Our goal is to highly educate each one of the council members so that in their respective districts, they can educate their constituents on more of a one-to-one method. That being said, you do need to know that when the budget is handed out at the end of this session, it will also go online at the same time. We're going to be totally transparent. We haven't seen the budget, and you'll be seeing it. It'll be available to you at the same time it's available to us. With that being said, who's going to start this off? Okay, our Chief Operations Officer, Mara Sullivan, will be starting it off, and she and our Chief Finance Officer and our Strategic Capital Planning Manager will be presenting the budget. Questions, et cetera, will be starting next week. Thank you. Mara?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I appreciate that. I'm Mara Black Sullivan. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Chattanooga, as Councilwoman Burrs noted. Thank you for having us here today.
And I'm Daisy Madison, the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Chattanooga. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you the City of Chattanooga's budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. This budget is the product of a great deal of hard work on the part of our staff, invaluable ideas and contributions from this council, and much public input and community engagement. The budget we present mirrors the values and priorities of our community and serves as a terrific roadmap to the future.
I'd like to take just a moment to acknowledge all the people who worked to help make this budget a reality. We have citizens and administrators, people from all parts of the administration who have worked on results teams. And I'd like for anyone who served on a results team to please rise. That includes our budget analysts from our budget team behind us as well. Thank you. Thank you all for your work.
Okay, Maura and I wanted to be sure of that because we're just the face. The real work is done on the part of the people that you just seen, and a lot of whom are not here. This will be our 5th budget prepared using the budgeting for outcome method. I wanted to give the council a brief refresher on how this process works. It is a 6-step process that begins with establishing Chattanooga's priority, which we believe are safer streets, smarter students, stronger families, high-performing government, growing economy, and stronger neighborhoods. For this budget, we acted on a suggestion from this council and included an added component to the resident engagement piece. We had a series of budget priority meetings throughout our community in last November and December. We had great feedback from the people who participated in those meetings, and that feedback helped to shape the funding priorities of this year's budget. The next step is to determine how many dollars are available and to allocate these to the results areas. City departments and outside agencies write proposals, or what we term as offers, about how they would help us achieve our results. This year, we received 197 offers and are funding 150 of those offers. The offers are then ranked by teams that include a member of the city leadership, a budget analyst, 3 city department heads, and 2 volunteer community members. After a final review by the budget leadership team and the mayor, the budget is finalized for your review. Once an offer receives funding, their performance is closely monitored to make sure that they are delivering the results that they promised the people of Chattanooga.
As you heard, this budget was crafted through months of public engagement and is rooted in a clear set of community values. As you'll see, we continue to advance the safety, prosperity, and livability of every neighborhood in Chattanooga. This budget focuses on balancing positive economic growth with a need to protect affordability, help create ladders of economic mobility within our community, and provide solutions for our city's residents who find themselves without a home to call their own. We continue to expand our workforce and offer training and support for Chattanoogans looking for employment. This budget ensures that we have a talented city workforce with the tools necessary to provide excellent services that Chattanoogans need and expect. Services like better sidewalks, paved roads, responsive emergency services, and vibrant public parks. In 2020, we will continue to invest in the health and safety of our young people, particularly children in high-risk neighborhoods, with our nationally recognized early childhood programs. And looking to the future, we are investing talent and capital to create a cooperative regional initiative that ensures that our region is ready to react and respond to changing climate and weather patterns. We are realistic about our challenges, we are optimistic about our opportunities for improvement, and we are ambitious in our goals for our city's future.
These type of initiatives are making our city stronger. The city that we are creating is stronger than ever, and we see these results every day. Our population is growing steadily. We are enjoying historic lows in poverty and unemployment. We're creating jobs twice as fast as the national economy, and criminal activity is declining. But of course, this is not a time to declare victory. Our city still faces some big decisions about how we can best build on this momentum. More than anything, this budget we present today is about understanding those choices and charting a path forward.
Even though our community is experiencing this amazing growth, as we explained last year, our sources of revenue to finance city services continue to dwindle after changes made by the state legislature. These changes have included a reduction and/or elimination of some of our major revenue sources, namely the shared sales tax on food and the hall income tax. Local governments across Tennessee to continue to feel the impact of the phase-out of the hall income tax. Starting in fiscal year 2021, the hall income tax will be completely phased out, equating to a permanent loss of $3.5 million to Chattanooga's general revenue stream. Fortunately for Chattanooga, we do keep collecting more local option sales taxes because our area's economy is so strong, but we know with other funds being cut, we have to spend every dollar as best we can.
We continue to remain focused on results that matter to the people of Chattanooga. We take our responsibility very seriously to deliver services that residents demand and deserve within our resource limitation. The financial plan being proposed to you today for discussion over the next several weeks is based on much monthly input. As Mara stated earlier, while taking into consideration the challenges and opportunities we face together as we determine how to best spend the public money. 2 years ago, in 2018, you approved the lowest tax rate in the last 60 years. Once again, the mayor's budget allows us to meet our obligations without increasing the tax burden on our residents and small business owners. This year's estimated general fund revenue is $263.8 million, a 1.15% over estimated year revenues in the current year. Briefly, let me explain how the budget is being funded. As this chart shows, property taxes remain the primary source of funds for the city, representing approximately $150.7 million, or 57.1% of total general fund revenues. State and local sales taxes, totaling together $67 million, represent 26% of total revenue sources. Sales taxes and property taxes combined represent nearly 83% of total revenues. As you can see, the city's general fund budget is highly reliant on these two sources of revenue. Any legislative changes or changes in economic conditions that negatively impact these sources of revenue create a huge challenge for us to develop a financial plan that continues to deliver excellent services for the residents.
All right, the next step in our BFO process is to allocate this available revenue that we just described to you to the results areas we mentioned earlier. This year, Safer Streets is the largest results area, making up 51% of the budget. The other results area will receive funding in roughly the same proportions in years past. It's me again. Aha, it's me again. After we allocate the total revenue sources of $263.8 million to our priorities, and the offers have been rated and prioritized, the expenditures to achieve these desired results can be grouped into major categories as follows. Salaries, 33.5%. Benefits, 25.3% of the budget. Debt service, 7.9% of the budget. Agency appropriations, 8.9% of the budget. And other operations, 24.3% of your budget.
Okay. Similarly, as we described, the budget process for allocating operations dollars.
There we go.
Sorry, guys, I turned 2 pages. As you can see from the screen, our most valuable resources to deliver city services are our employees. Salaries and benefits make up more than 58.8% of our total resources allocated to the results areas. For every dollar spent on employee compensation, 43 cents is spent on the cost of benefits. A further breakout of benefits demonstrate that the largest components are pension, which is 45%, and something called Other Post-Employment Benefit, or OPEB, which represents 23%. The two of these combined make up a total of 68% of the total benefits cost, with another 20% for medical benefits. While the cost of these benefits have been scaling down the past 2 years, they are a significant component of the recruitment and retention of competent professionals to achieve results.
And now we'll be joined by Mr. Justin Steinman.
Another large component of our budget is the money we dedicate to our capital plan. Our CIP is a 5-year roadmap showing how the city will use dollars for infrastructure improvement. The 5-year plan is a long-term strategic plan that ensures the future sustainability of our city and infrastructure. This plan is presented to, reviewed, and approved by the City Council on an annual basis. In FY20, our total capital program will consist of $195 million spread across our general government and enterprise fund spending. Here you see how the general government capital projects will be funded in FY20. Funding for general fund capital projects is distributed among many funding sources, including using some revenue and dollars that are dedicated in the hotel motel fund, economic development funds, and others. We also use some bond and reserve dollars in our program this year, as well as funds from general operating, state, federal, and private partners. Repairs to our infrastructure related to the flood events of this spring represent a large proportion of the external sources shown on the previous slide. And much the same as we described the process for allocating operating dollars, we use the same general outcomes-based process for allocating capital dollars. Largest portion of our capital budget allocations are focused on stronger neighborhoods, with 46% of the dollars growing economy receiving 23%, and the remainder spread throughout the other results areas.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, so you've heard the structure of the budget, the revenue, and largely how the expenditures will be structured. Now let's hear about some of the specific strategic, operational, and capital priorities that are highlighted throughout this year's budget.
Let's first look at safer streets. We are committed to creating a safer, more peaceful Chattanooga through the offers funded in our Safer Streets results area. We are funding additional cameras for the full-time intelligence center so that there will be more cameras in the neighborhoods. Our budget invests in things such as continuing the success of our focused deterrence initiative by helping former offenders navigate the services and opportunities they need to safely and productively reenter society. Maintaining full staffing levels at the Chattanooga Fire Department, ensuring their ability to respond rapidly to emergencies throughout the city, and maintain their ISO rating of 1, the highest possible rating, one that is shared by only 0.5% of the agencies in the departments in the country. Beginning work to replace Fire Station number 15, the Chattanooga Police Department will ensure that every school in our city without an SRO and every early learning center has a specific police liaison with direct ownership for that school's safety and security. Handle with care, a new police-school partnership will begin this year that will allow greater communication between police officers and school. For example, if a police officer is called to a child's house, we will let the administrators at that school know, reporting specialized information so that teachers and administrators can understand the problems children face outside the school day and are better able to help.
In the Stronger Neighborhoods results area, we have heard from our residents at budget input sessions that our neighborhoods need stronger connections to each other through infrastructure improvements, community building and activation, and improved public spaces. Our strong economy is enhancing the lives of most Chattanoogans, but people at the bottom of the income scale are struggling more than ever. Through our Stronger Neighborhoods results area, this budget demonstrates our commitment to giving every Chattanoogan the opportunity to live in a safe, vibrant neighborhood, connected by good streets, sidewalks, and trails that encourage a variety of transportation modes. Methodical, collaborative strategies to preserve affordability and end homelessness are an exceptional focus in this budget as we recognize the need to balance economic growth with housing security. Our Stronger Neighborhoods budget invests in protecting the affordability of Chattanooga's neighborhoods through the continuation of Chattanooga's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, implementation of our plan to eliminate homelessness in our community, funding to complete key parts of the citywide greenway system, the creation of a public-private partnership that will ensure curbside recycling for all Chattanooga residences, and improving our streets. Year over year, this administration has increased our paving budget, and this year will again yield an all-time high for dollars committed to our street infrastructure. $28 million will be used to improve Chattanooga's roads this year, with added emphasis on those areas that suffered damage in this spring's flooding. Major repairs to Elder Mountain Road, Lake Resort Drive, and Hamill Road are at the top of our priorities list. Got some fans.
Yeah. Okay, Marcia, let me read that. All right. Next is our high-performing government results area. While state and federal legislators continue to place strenuous demands on local government, we remain devoted to delivering services fairly, efficiently, and effectively as possible. The long-term fiscal health of your local government is strong. Our commitment to employees and retirees are secure, and local property tax rates are lower now than at any point in the last 6 decades. Through our commitment to open data and performance management, we can measure your government's performance and services throughout the year and make necessary operations course corrections when needed. Looking forward, we need to invest in developing a regional destiny with neighboring counties and municipalities who share our concern about resiliency and climate-related disaster preparedness. Specifically, the budget calls for investments in retaining our employees through a fair and equitable pay, keeping up with our obligations to our employees through meeting our benefit contributions, delivering best-in-class racial equity training to all city employees, new initiatives to provide assistance to individuals who are unable to pay sewer bills, funded solely with private dollars. This is provided under agreement with third parties that you just heard earlier today. Updating the street paving condition index to better prioritize repairs that are most needed, and continuing the high level of critical citywide services with no increase in tax. I don't get another clap.
And Daisy, I got to read a good one on the paving. How about the employee pay increase? That's in high-performing government.
It is high-performing government. As I said, the budget is committed to making sure that our most valuable resource is adequately compensated. So this budget includes a 2.5% increase for all city civilian employees and all of the sworn personnel. That the budget includes funding to ensure that their career ladder program is implemented as well.
Thanks. Moving on to Smarter Students, Stronger Families results area, you'll see that our budget sustains our successful investments in Chattanooga's children and families by increasing our support of early childhood programs, particularly in high-risk areas of our city. Our citywide network of Head Start centers, youth and family development centers, and public libraries provide a myriad of enrichment and learning opportunities for young people in every corner of our city. Our landmark Baby University program continues to help young mothers create lives of health, success, and personal and professional growth. This budget invests in the health and safety and quality of life of young children, particularly those born in high-risk zip codes, by continuing the Seats for Success program, adding more high-quality early learning seats throughout our city. expanding the tools available for every childhood teacher by providing a research-based curriculum. This curriculum will include both books, implementation materials, online tools, as well as a 2-day training seminar by expert trainers. And we will also be expanding our successful Public Works Summer Employment Program again this year.
Economic mobility provides the dignity, security, and quality of life that Chattanooga families need, which is why it is at the core of our economic development strategy. Growth across practically all sectors of our regional economy gives us opportunities to help people achieve critical economic mobility and attain long-term stability. This budget invests in the entrepreneurs, small business owners, and major employers that want to succeed by delivering the jobs that will help local workers and their families thrive. We will make this happen through strategic investments such as supporting 1,000 new jobs at Volkswagen, a realignment of 3rd and 4th Street network to create a new health and wellness corridor that will maximize capital investment and job-creating potential of the major healthcare and higher education partners in the area. Public-private partnerships that build a stronger workforce ecosystem that supports training and job creation. One example of this type of program and partnership is the Build It Green, acronym BIG. It prepares at-risk young adults for jobs in construction and energy services field. Statewide data shows that there continues to be a lack of people entering the field in these fields, creating a shortage of skilled construction worker labor. The development of a 5-year plan of strategies to improve economic mobility, which is a plan that, when implemented, will increase the likelihood that young people in Chattanooga will be able to earn more than their parents.
All right, so in addition to our general fund, our budget includes several other special fund, revenue funds, and enterprise funds that are used to account for specific operations and are restrictive in their nature. Two of the largest of these funds are the Interceptor Sewer System Fund and the Water Quality Fund. We're going to delve a lot more deeply into these during your education sessions, but on this tiny print, you can see a lot of the details on the Interceptor Sewer System Fund. And just briefly, this is a fund that accounts for activities related to the city's wastewater and sanitary sewer system. Expenditures from this fund support the Moccasin Bend wastewater treatment plant and the regional wastewater collection system. The operation is funded entirely by fees. The Interceptor Sewer System FY 2020 budget of $107 million does include a previously scheduled rate increase of 9.8%. These dollars are necessary to maintain compliance with the federal consent decree. And similarly, with another major enterprise fund, the Water Quality Fund, and a more small print for your enjoyment, but all of this is detailed very clearly in your books and on the website. But the Water Quality Fund is used to comply with federal regulations require the city to manage stormwater runoff. The revenues from this fund are derived from a combination of ratepayer and land disturbance permit fees. The budget as presented includes a 9.7% rate increase. Almost done.
The numbers you just looked at, Mara put those in there for my sake. I had to have my numbers. In addition to the $263.8 million general fund, this budget includes operations costs from 13 other funds, which creates a total citywide operations budget of over $492.4 million, of which $31.8 million is used for one-time capital expenditures. Also presented to you today is a capital budget totaling $195.3 million. for a grand total of operations and capital budget of $687.7 million. Thank you for your attention and involvement so far in the creation of the city's financial plan for our city. Our administrators and budget team and results team look forward to answering your questions at the upcoming education sessions.
Your budget documents will be distributed momentarily. I know that's what you're all waiting for. So everything that we have shared with you, again, as Councilwoman Burrs did say, that will be posted on the city's website before close of business today. Allow me to close this presentation as we began. This is a budget focused on delivering results for Chattanooga, based entirely on the priorities and needs of the people that have been articulated to us through a process that is designed for complete transparency, accountability, and public engagement. The investments that we call for here maintain the excellent level of services that Chattanoogans expect and sustain our progress while extending more opportunities for prosperity, safety, and livability to more corners of our city. The work we've been doing in this community together is paying dividends. These investments allow for more opportunity for our city of creators to thrive. We look forward to working with you, Council, in the weeks ahead. And you see your schedule there for the public that Dr. Burrs outlined a few moments ago. And we will now distribute your books.
Councilman Mitchell wants the first copy.
Thank you very much. If you can, take pictures of this next steps. That's our, if you'd put it back up, please.
Say this again.
Let's put it back up so that the public can take a picture of that schedule if they want it.
Oh, the skit.
It's the last slide. I'll do it.
Yeah, this is not working for me as well. Here.
It's your very last slide, I believe.
It's okay. Here we go. Yay.
Yeah, leave that up, please. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, that's the end of budget for today, but I believe we have a youth and family. Public Works next? All right, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Mitchell. Public Works and Transportation.
What do y'all want to do with these minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, thank you. We're going to start with transportation. Good try, buddy. I'll be back to you. Hello, Mr. Bailey.
Hello, Mr.
I
Councilman.
hope you thoroughly enjoyed that budget presentation.
I did.
Good. You know what, first thing we have here is an ordinance on final reading. It's about dockless small vehicle sharing programs. We already read it first reading, but is there any actions anybody or comments anybody would have on that? Councilman Ledford.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I thought I'd never get the chance for a second. So today at 1:30, I asked a question around the room just to make sure that the council understands where the scooters will be allowed. And I'm sorry, I still think we're a little confused. I'm not sure everyone understands where they are allowed. And I think that's something that I think we need to hammer out. We need to hammer it out because our Chattanooga Police Department is going to need to know. We're going to need to know when people ask us questions. So Blythe, I noticed Keith is not here, but can you advise the way the ordinance is written? I'm understanding that scooters will be allowed on city streets and city sidewalks. Is that your take?
No.
And why?
I guess maybe firstly, I'm perfectly fine for recognizing that there's been some confusion from various sources. As I understand it, I was looking around for both Keith as well as police officer representatives because I wanted to just describe a little bit of the history because, as you know, in my presentations, we've worked together with police and 311 and various others to try to make sure that we are anticipating how this is going to go so that we can make the best decision. But we felt like it made the most sense to prohibit scooters from sidewalks, and that is the code section, oh gosh, I had it up earlier. 514C. I knew it was C. I think it says, maybe you can pull it up faster than me, but.
It says no small vehicle shall be operated on any sidewalk that is intended solely for pedestrians.
Right. And the reason that we actually discussed that directly with the police department, we felt like that was the cleanest way to offer the opportunity for police to enforce, say, uncivil behavior of scooter riders on the sidewalk, rather than the opposite, which requires discretion, where if they're allowed on sidewalks, but obviously would not probably allow reckless scooter riding, that would require individual police officer discretion to determine whether someone was behaving recklessly or not. And as defined currently, where they're strictly prohibited, it means that a police officer can determine whether there's reckless driving happening and enforce the code based on the strict prohibition.
So now it's up to an individual police officer to determine whether or not they are going to enforce scootering on sidewalks because it could.
Precisely the opposite, Mr. Councilman.
Okay.
It's prohibited on sidewalks, which
So-
makes it easier for police to enforce.
Okay, so the Chattanooga Police Department is in agreement that scooters will not be allowed on sidewalks.
That is my understanding. I don't think there's anyone here from the police.
I'm looking back there, Blythe, and I'm like, geez, oh Pete, where are you when I need you?
Yeah.
Okay, I still don't think where everyone's clear on
Yeah.
that. What do you think? I'm kidding. I'm gonna put you on the spot, but,
I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, Councilman. I'm with you all that we should make sure that it's clear.
yeah, I just don't think that we're clear.
I'm describing the intention that I think was
Sure.
good intention of both our department as well as police in terms of how we would enforce it.
Well, the one thing I've learned from sitting up here and from my colleagues is as good as we can get it and understanding, I don't want us to go out and pass something and next week all kinds of information shows up that says city council did not understand what we passed. And I think that we're still not very clear on where they are allowed. So with that, Chairman, I yield. Thank you.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick follow-up, Blythe. After reading what that clause says, I believe, Phil, you said it's something exclusively for pedestrians.
You know, solely intended for pedestrians.
Solely intended for pedestrians. How does somebody on a scooter know whether that is solely intended for pedestrians?
That's a good point, Councilman. Yeah, the intention was that we were distinguishing shared use paths from sidewalks, which in the code are defined that way. So we were simply just referencing the way that sidewalks are defined in the current city code.
Would we expect that we need to make it clearer, or do we need signage on our sidewalk saying pedestrian use only, or?
I think it'd be wise to designate.
Is that something you're thinking?
Sidewalks that are shared use paths, certainly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. I still struggle with the situation. My assumption is that jaywalking is illegal, and we do not enforce it in certain areas, or some officers, not all, may use it as a tool to say, hey, you jaywalked, come over here and let me do a pat down, or let me get your information, or whatever the case may be. So how do we police the police? You know, so it's still gonna be to discretion. And no matter how we look at it, if someone is acting recklessly on a scooter on a sidewalk, you get the officer's attention. If someone is jaywalking, if the officers choose to do something. So I think once you start going down that rabbit hole, it's gonna be, we need to change all our laws. That's all I need to say.
Okay, I see no further lights at this time. So I guess we'll move on until we come back at 6 o'clock and discuss it. Okay, we'll move on to resolutions this week in transportation. Would you please read 7L?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into a partnership agreement with ECG Chestnut LP for Chestnut Flats located at 2108 Chestnut Street, project number T19004804, and to accept a contribution of $19,757.84 towards the cost of 8 pedestrian light poles, luminaries, conduits, and installation.
Councilman Gilbert, is this about the previous discussion?
Yes.
Okay, have at it.
Like, based off bicyclers, they have to have certain helmets or whatever protection. If they require the same thing for the scooters, for its age and helmets?
For someone riding their personal
Underage.
bicycle in the city?
Right.
Oh, just in time. I don't know, I can just say that this ordinance wasn't intended to address anything other than small vehicles as defined, which is those that have GPS-enabled systems that are deployed as part of a dockless system. So it was only intended to create a mechanism to regulate these scooter companies that are emerging. It was not intended to change anything related to existing code. So I couldn't tell you, I'm not prepared to address existing code requirements, Councilman.
Okay, I was curious about that part. Can you find out later on?
Sure.
Let me
Your
know.
question is,
About the helmets.
what is the helmet requirements for cyclists?
Right, you know, bicycle, you have to have a helmet on you at a certain age. I want to make sure there's a kid,
Okay. I'll find out.
15, 16,
I'll find out.
do they have a helmet or not?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anybody want to talk to Keith Reisman? You want to? Okay.
I'm listening to you all on the feed. And when I heard that the scooters were coming up again for discussion, I ran over.
Okay.
Okay, so the question was, Keith, and I just think there's a lot of unclarity up here as to where the scooters are allowed and where they're not allowed because of their classification. I believe what we heard from Mr. Bailey was that they are not allowed on city sidewalks.
Correct, and I understand that there's some ambiguity in the ordinance, and we're going to fix that.
So
And that's the best way. They're not allowed, the motorized vehicles are not allowed on sidewalks, the motorized bicycles and the motorized scooters.
So e-bikes?
We talking about the dockless e-bikes or regular e-bikes?
Hence, this is the conversation that,
Okay.
this is where I'm concerned, that we're voting on something final tonight that we're not all real clear on.
State
the
law prohibits e-bikes on
E-bikes.
sidewalks unless the municipality allows them on sidewalks and the engines, the motors are disabled. So sidewalks alone, e-bikes are not going to go either on state law or under the ordinance that's in front of you. They are allowed on bike paths under state law, e-bikes.
Okay, so let's break this down, just so if I'm talking to a constituent and they're like, hey, I'm gonna rent a scooter downtown, where am I allowed to ride?
Bike lanes on streets.
Bike lanes?
If there are no bike lanes
The
towards
street.
the curb on the streets, okay? And any pathway that's under this ordinance, that's designated as a bike path. For example,
Charities paths?
what's downtown? The
Riverwalk?
Riverwalk is designated as a bike path.
Okay, so the Riverwalk is a multi-use
I
path.
believe that's what it's called, and the multi-use
Okay.
passes are included in the definition of where these can go.
Okay, now, okay, so when I'm telling folks, we're clear. If Chattanooga Police, if Officer Justice back here sees a scooter on the city street sidewalk, or sidewalks, that is a ticketed offense?
Yeah, it'd be a ticketed offense under the ordinance, correct.
Okay,
Normal sidewalk, yes, unless it's a
quick
bike.
question on the Riverwalk, because I'm unclear. Part of the Riverwalk, I understand, is outside of the urban overlay.
Correct.
So is there going to be police officers standing there with a don't
No.
pass this zone?
This is always a
line?
question of enforcement, but the way it's going to be enforced is that if you go outside the zone that we've set forth,
Mhm.
the scooter or the e-bike will not be able to be turned off. That's called the fencing,
The geofence.
geofence.
Right.
And they'll have to come back in order to get it turned off. There'll be a self-penalty if you go outside and try to stop the device from working.
Okay.
It won't stop. It'll
All right.
continue charging.
All right, and that helps me, and I appreciate you running down
Okay.
here, because in our ordinance strictly, it says, and will uphold, that they are not allowed on sidewalks.
Right, what we're doing, I believe, is what I was, unless it's designated as a bike path. So I'm not sure in this city if there are sidewalks that are also
Well,
multi-use paths, but normal sidewalks are not gonna be allowed.
Councilman Smith alluded to that question, that
Yeah.
was, is anybody gonna know? Because I think a lot of these are gonna be rented by tourists downtown, and are we prepared?
Well,
as a city
number one,
to-
there's probably markings. I don't bike, so I'm not sure what the markings are. I do know on our website, we have a map that shows all the places where we have multi-use paths. And I'll defer to Blythe about what type of markings are on the paths themselves. I've seen pictures of multi-use paths on the internet, on our website, that says bike path.
Okay.
So I've seen that.
All right, I'm just gonna go with
I'm more sedentary.
no sidewalks, so,
Okay.
thank you, I appreciate you coming down. Chairman, I thank you for the time again.
Councilman Gilbert.
Okay.
Just briefly, the question I asked a while ago was about helmets. Bicyclists are required, correct, to wear helmets?
If I recall correctly, when this ordinance was being written, we looked at the state law. And I think it's bicyclists have to have helmets 14 and under.
Right.
I
So that would
believe
apply
that's
with
it.
this too, correct?
That's what ours now says, you can't rent a dockless small vehicle if you're under 14. So we removed the helmet requirement and just said you can't do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reisman.
Okay.
We're going to try to move on
Okay,
and go to 7M.
okay.
A resolution authorizing the appointments of Tanya Salas, Sydney Zink, Jasmine Dagman, and Ricky Mincy as special police officers unarmed for the Chattanooga Area Regional Transportation Authority to do special duties as prescribed herein, subject to certain conditions.
All right, I see no lights. Let's move to next week's resolutions. That's 7L.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into a construction agreement with Norfolk Southern Railroad Company for the St. Elmo Avenue sidewalk modifications under Norfolk Southern relative to contract number T14021201 for an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Blythe, is that 33rd Street? No. Is this the overpasses?
Right, we're
Okay.
talking about, we skipped two, so it got me a little, This is the, no, sir, this is the crossing there farther south, just south from, it's around 37th Street.
Okay.
It's the one that has active rail on it. There is another crossing farther north. I don't think that's the Norfolk Southern. I think that's a CSX, and it may have been
Okay.
abandoned at that
Very good.
location.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
No more lights. Okay, Mr. Bailey, thank you.
Councilman, I think did I miss two? From,
Let me go back and take a
my
look.
mind is full of scooter questions. For item L and M.
Well, we did L, but then we went right back to the scooter thing.
I
So
just,
did you have
there were no
something?
questions, so I'm sorry, but yeah, my mind was in scooters, so thank you, sorry.
All right, we're going to go to Public Works now. Mr. Holland? We're waiting. Would you mind if I read a proclamation?
Yeah, thank you.
Before we get started?
Yes, sir.
National Public Works Week is coming up. That's what this is about. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water quality, sewers, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts of skill of public works officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, I, Andy Burke, Mayor of the City of Chattanooga, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through May 25th as National Public Works Week in the City of Chattanooga, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great work, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman Mitchell. If you'll give me just a moment, I'll tell you about Public Works Week.
Okay.
Briefly. So we have a series of events during Public Works Week, several outreach opportunities and volunteer opportunities that our employees participate in. They also, it's a week that we use to highlight the good work that our Public Works employees do. And we talk about projects that our Public Works Department employees have constructed and the services that they provide to our residents. We take an opportunity every year to host a few events, and those outreach events, the community service events that we do in addition to our normal work, an equipment rodeo where our equipment operators are highlighted each year. It happens next Wednesday, and then an annual lunch and awards program Thursday and then Friday, respectively. So we have a week full of events. The council will receive a full schedule of those events, and we look forward to seeing you all at whatever you can participate at. We are very appreciative of your support, and we enjoy serving the community. And all the accolades that were mentioned in the proclamation are 100% our staff and dedicated individuals who support us, and we appreciate you for being a part of that.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Justin, I just want to say thank you. With the rains that we had recently, I noticed the preparation. It was mentioned here many times, and I know around the city, things could have been a whole heck of a lot worse without the work that Public Works did in advance. And I know that you all have been answering the calls night and day, and I thank you very much, and everybody who works in Public Works.
Thank you.
So, a huge shout out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. That's very nice of you. Speaking of work, let's get to work on this agenda. Tuesday, May 14th, Resolution 7H, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to waive the green fee and cart rental at Brainerd and Brown Acres golf courses for the Department of Public Works employee for one round at each golf course during Public Works Week on May 18 through May 26, 2019.
See no lights, let's move on to I.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number final for Wright Brothers Construction Company, Inc., relative to contract number S09008201, North St. Elmo Storm Drainage Contract for the decreased amount of $803,984.07 to release the contingency amount of $1.5 million for a revised contract amount of $14,351,829.10.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I saw that decreased amount. Mr. Holland, I'm sure you're ready to tell us about that. I'm
Yes, sir.
excited.
Oftentimes, we do give back money from a project, out of a contingency from a project, so this is not unusual, but we are closing out this project and returning some of those funds that we budgeted for contingency on a $14 million project. So we were satisfied with our performance, the contractors and consultants who performed the work, and another great opportunity to plug the work that our staff do to control some of those costs and very complex projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please read J.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number E18017201 to Williams Restoration and Waterproofing, Inc. of La Verge, Tennessee, City Hall and City Council buildings exterior refurbishing in the amount of $295,986 with a contingency amount of $20,000 for a total amount of $315,986.
All right, I don't see a light. K, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into a blanket contract for professional services for the continuing on-call environmental consulting services for asbestos-lead indoor air quality and other environmental assessment, contract number E19002-301 for the 8 reference consultant firms for year 1 of term up to 4 years with the year's amount not to exceed $215,000.
Okay, we're going to move on to next week. We have an ordinance on first reading next week. Please read 6B.
An ordinance closing and abandoning a sanitary sewer easement in the 200 block of West 16th Street on property located at 1514 Coward Street as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
You okay, Councilman? Yeah, I'm good. Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Moving on to resolutions next week. Please read 7F.
A resolution authorizing the street name change from the 3000 to 8599 blocks of Hickory Valley Road to the 3000 to 8599 blocks of Claude Ramsey Parkway in memory of former Hamilton County Mayor Claude T. Ramsey.
All right, please read G.
A resolution authorizing the street name change from the 200 block of unnamed alley to the 200 block of Back Street for adequate provision of emergency services.
Hold on a second on that one. I think.
Yes, sir.
Councilperson Burrs, if she'll hit her
Okay.
light. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's already been taken care of in our smaller meeting, but for the record, it is District 6, but this particular one should be comma, sponsored by the following council persons, and that's Ledford, Oglesby, and Burrs.
We can make that amendment.
Yeah, we already asked the city attorney to do it, but for the record, do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilperson. We had read G, but I think we didn't read it? Yeah, we read it, didn't we?
Yeah,
please
clarify that.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Oglesby.
It is my understanding that that is going to be withdrawn because of the name of the street. Could you give us some information on that for the record?
Yes, sir. Well, referring to item H, we're asking for the council to withdraw that from next week's agenda.
Actually, G.
G.
Okay. Item G, then. I have it as H, but
Okay.
To clarify, it's the 200 block of an unnamed alley to 200 block of Back Street that we're withdrawing. And we've gotten new information from the residents. We previously worked with the residents on the name change, but we've gotten a request from the residents to change it to something else, and we are working with them now. So that just came through early this week, yesterday, and we'll work on that with the residents and come back to you.
All right, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Phil, because it's on next week's agenda, we can just pull it at this point, can we?
Yes.
Okay. So we don't have to take any action. Okay, good. H, please.
A resolution amending resolution number 28683 to enter into a contract with Orange Grove Center, Inc. to share revenues for managing and marketing materials and to operate refuse and recycling convenience centers for fiscal years 2017 through 2020, effective July 8, 2016, for a total amount not to exceed $2,664,661.81, and to authorize a contract with Orange Grove Centers, Inc. to receive revenues for managing and marketing recyclable materials and to operate refuse and recycle convenience centers for fiscal years 2019 through 2024, effective May 1, 2019, for a total amount not to exceed $3,501,464.63.
All right, seeing no lights, I, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into a joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey to operate 7 continuous real-time stream gauges located on North Chickamauga Creek, South Chickamauga Creek, Chattanooga Creek, and 4 new locations to be determined by USGS and City of Chattanooga personnel for a gauge operation period beginning April 1, 2019 through March 31st, 2020, with a contribution of $10,875 from USGS and $93,925 from the City of Chattanooga, for a total cost of $104,800.
Well, you put up a map. You must be
I did.
wanting to say something.
I did want to mention this. This is a project that we began back in 2011. Really, it began with TVA installing and the Army Corps of Engineers installing predictive flood stream gauges for when the Brainerd Levee was installed. But we've augmented this over several years. You can see there that the green dots represent federal agency-owned stream gauges. The red dots are currently joint funded by the city and USGS, and you will see a few of those outside of the city, but those help us provide some predictive data that I'll show you in just a moment. And then the yellow locations are the proposed new locations. Many of them inside this, I think all of these are inside the city limits. What these do is help us to provide predictive flood analysis for preparedness, mitigation, and community resilience. The rainfall totals prediction with the stream elevations. This is a snapshot of South Chickamauga Creek back in February of this year, and you can see that the activation stages alert us to predictive flood analysis, and the predictive analysis comes just a little bit after that real point in time when we're able to see when streams crest and recede. So these are an important part of a community that is able to be prepared and notify our residents of what is happening. This is work that we are also working with the Army Corps of Engineers on, and all of these pieces put together help us to predict where flooding may occur, when it may occur, and prepare our residents and neighbors to be ready for what may come. And we also use this for, in the most recent South Chickamauga Creek February events, this was pretty indicative of what we would have seen flood-wise for that area. And the predictive analysis provided by the USGS stream gauges that they operate really we were able to tell that story and be a little bit more prepared ahead of time. This shows the streams that crested around February 24th, and it helps us to predict when those flood waters go down, helps us to predict when roads should be closed and when they should reopen, and also the development of an advanced warning system is a next phase that we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers, the United States Geological Society, and the city. And I just wanted to highlight that for us because it's a really important project in our water quality operations that helps us demonstrate preparedness, mitigation, and resilience.
Okay, thank you. All right, got a couple more. Let's move on to J, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into year 3 of a possible 5-year agreement with Material Matters, Inc. for professional services related to the biosolids data management system and all services listed therein for an amount not to exceed $55,750.
Okay, I don't see a light on this, but Councilman Gilbert, I missed your light. Do you want to say something?
On the flooding situation, since you have done your map and everything of that nature, if someone builds construction, bring up their property level a little bit higher than when it was when you did the map, how does that affect the area?
So the data is pretty is pretty dynamic in that sense that we would have to go back and look at where our baseline data performed, or where our baseline data shows flood levels would affect land use, but we would then go back and be able to, at later dates, with additional data from our Land Development Office, FEMA, and the Army Corps of Engineers, be able to do additional work to do overlays. That can be conducted by flyovers with laser technology and LiDAR. There's a number of ways that that would be updated, but it is necessary over time to update that information. So it's a good point.
So when someone, I know your department work probably hopefully with Donald's department, when someone pulls a permit and this area is known for flooding, do you get flagged for that, for as a potential area getting filled in that used to flood, but now the water got to go somewhere? Do they flag you with that information?
So there is a process in Land Development Office that is coordinated with our water quality operations. To the Land Development Office issues the permits for those types of fill sites, and cooperatively both of the departments work together to identify where that may be problematic during the permitting process. Later, it would be reviewed in an additional overlay of the entire city.
So that will not affect the person live next to them if they're still getting flooded? Will that any say-so, anything like that? By you filling in, making it more water onto somebody else's property, how does that work?
Well, Mr. City Attorney, it may be better to answer this question, but I believe it is illegal for us to, for any development, to move water onto another development.
You can't increase the flow of water onto your adjoining property owners. If you do so, you're in violation of the law.
What's the penalty?
Well, it's usually an amount of what the damages cost on there, because they've got a good civil action against that individual.
Okay, thanks.
Typically just a civil action.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And the responsibility's up to the owner to pursue that civil action. We don't get involved in that.
No, sir.
Councilman Byrd.
What if the city owns the property that they're dumping, that they're increasing the water flow onto?
Then our office usually gets involved in that lawsuit as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We should be so lucky. Please read K.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew contract number S16011 on-call landscape architect design services for year 3 of 3 with ASA Engineering and Consulting, Inc., Barge Design Solutions, Stantec, and WM Whitaker and Associates for 1-year blanket contracts with 4 professional firms for use by all departments for an estimated total amount of $500,000.
All right, I see no lights. That concludes Public Works and Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Great work. We're now going to move on to Youth and Family Development. Councilperson Coonrod is going to take it over.
Can I get approval of the minutes? Thank you. And got a great presentation from YFD from Jason. Thank you, Jason, for joining us today. So you can go ahead.
All right, thank you, Council, for letting me share some things that were occurring here at YFD. Today, mainly, we're going to be focused on some of the educational programming that we do. Currently, we do some similar programs that we've been doing for a long time, highlighting the Lexia reading program. We're continuing to do this in all of our centers. We have 700 licenses that we utilize. Over the summertime, we'll increase to 1,200, so we'll have enough for all of our campers. And be able to use this. This is kind of a tool, one of the tools in our toolbox to address literacy. So, you know, we've talked about this about different councils, but I just want to say that it is continuing in our centers. The STEAM programs, we're going to talk a little bit more about this down the slides, but we're continuing to increase our STEAM programs, and that stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. And this is how we're addressing a lot of the hands-on learning. You know, when we really talk about how do students get involved in careers early on, especially in elementary school, that's where STEAM and STEM programs are. They're really exposure to future careers. And so when we talk about the city of creators, we really look at a lot of these STEAM programs in our centers. We do a character club with Medal of Honor. This is where we work with the 4th and 5th graders in our centers to look at the traits that are associated with Medal of Honor, and with the moving of the Medal of Honor museum and different emphasis that they have in the community. One of the things they do is come to our centers and work with this youth development character. This has been a great program. We've done it at most of our centers now, and by the end of the summer, we'll have this program that has been gone to every one of our centers. Doing different events of special trips. One of the things about education is moving students around the city so they're exposed to everything the city has to offer. And so we're constantly looking at new ways and new events that we can take the students to expose them throughout the city. We have 16 academic coaches, so every one of our centers has an academic coach where they spend 12 hours per week working with the students, mainly doing homework or Lexia, or even just sitting down and working on their senior projects. But they are there as a resource for kids when they go home. Usually, if they come to our centers, they're there, and that's where they need to get their work done. So they just need support to get their, you know, just any work that they need to get done for school. Another new initiative that we have is called RoboThink. This is we're partnered with the organization to come in and do more robotics type programs. They're going to be in a couple of our centers to kind of, you know, we kind of do a trial run to see how it's all going to work out. But at Avondale, they'll be there whenever it opens up. And then we also have Brainerd and South Chat where we're doing a little trial run. The main thing that I want to talk about for this week, start May 11th through May 18th, is Remake Learning Days. This is a partnership with WTCI and with PEF to bring in kind of a highlight of what we do on a regular basis, but it really just puts that whole focus on a week-long learning program. We upload all the events that we are doing. We also talk about our nonprofits, talk to them to upload all the information. And then, you know, and then the Chattanooga Library, it was had a big role in putting a lot of different programs in there. And we have over 200 programs throughout this 1 week alone that are involved in STEM programs, just hands-on learning programs. And if you can, I was going to kind of do a quick slide that's been out a little bit about just kind of highlights what we're doing.
Or an educator looking for new ideas to connect learning and fun? Chattanooga is hosting a community-wide celebration of learning, and you're invited. Visit RemakeLearningDays.org to find an event near you and join us from May 11th through May 18th to celebrate learning in Chattanooga. From libraries to rec centers to e-labs and outdoor adventures, there's something for everyone during Remake Learning Days Chattanooga. Visit RemakeLearningDays.org today to find an event near you.
So that's been on a lot of the PBS TV shows. So if you watch PBS a lot, then you probably have seen that. But we have just kind of did a kind of a call out to come to our centers, come to our libraries, come see what we can do, work with kids doing hands-on activities. I know during nightfall, we had Councilman Oglesby was able to accept our, and present the proclamation. Tomorrow, there's a STEM Jubilee, working with the STEM high school. And then, there's just small different programs throughout the city. You also have a day of coding this weekend where they're trying to break the world record for the number of girls coding on the same day. So a lot of interesting, fun things going on. These are here so we were able to get this event and highlight it through working with the Grable Foundation. There's only a few locations throughout the nation that are doing this. So you have, I don't know why it got all jumbled like that, but it's Chicago, Knoxville, North Carolina, West Virginia, Southeast Pennsylvania, Southwestern Pennsylvania, Northeast Ohio, and East Kentucky. So these are the locations. So we're kind of a highlight in Chattanooga about what we're doing in learning. And of all those locations, we've got the second largest amount of events going on this week. We're right behind Chicago. So definitely proud of what we're doing to highlight just the educational program that we do in the city. The themes that the programs are art, science, maker, technology, outdoor learning, and youth voice. And so when you create an event, you kind of talk about like what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And it could be one or multiple of these. And this is all just different awareness that we're trying to do within the city. Finally, one of the things that we're doing within the centers, we're trying to get each one of our centers produces a theme. And so our super centers will all have a STEAM theme. This right here is at Hickson, a YFD center, and it's going to be working around aeronautics. And that there's just the walls that were painted, and that's just one wall. Every wall has, it looks like an airport hangar up there in one of our classrooms. This was done with collaboration with the STEM high school, so that one of their projects, they came in, they had this painted, they were able to get different artifacts, so it really does look like a airport hangar. And then what we're going to do, they're bringing in different drones and different airplanes that the students will be able to build and then go out and fly it. And if it's a rainy day, they can fly it in the gym. But it's just working those hands-on activities that we're trying to do to promote learning. We have South Chat will be doing science and arts. Brainerd will be doing coding, and then when we open Avondale, it'll be doing robotics. So just some similar things that we're doing across the city throughout the year. And that's it.
Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, I haven't been to a meeting, are we still meeting with John Cunningham and the school system folks to try to figure out how to better use our summer camps and our winter camps to kind of support?
Yeah, they haven't really been as formal as we started off as having a huge group of individuals, but we work with John and several of his team about trying to figure out the summer programs and how we move the kids from, if they go to a certain school for 8 to 12, and then we move them to our centers. We're still working on that, but it's still it's a transportation nightmare, and also we have all of our centers get filled with participants, and they have a lot of participants in their learning, summer learning too. So we're still trying to work it out and make it happen, make different things happen, but we just haven't figured it out yet.
Is there a particular problem? I mean, it's something that we could help with, or are we just talking strictly logistics? I mean,
it's mainly logistics and numbers. Okay. What they would like to do is when they have what they're doing is they have from 8 to 12, they have a summer school, and kids that are struggling would come there and work and focus on trying to get caught up in different programs. What they would like at 12 o'clock, then those kids come to our center and then be able to participate in our activities from 12 to 4:30. The issue is that every one of our centers is maxed out space-wise, and so how can we bring 40 kids from Woodmore over to Brainerd and support that? That's kind of the logistics that we're struggling with on that.
okay. And then as far as the arts, you mentioned, I think in one of the slide presentations, you had some art programs in the at-risk. Well, we'll call them at-risk areas. What do site directors do they have the authority to put in their budgets to deal with arts?
Yeah, so every one of our centers has $6,500 to do whatever they deem necessary. And it's worth just recreational programming is what it's labeled as. We also look at the educational budget to try to look at different art programs to spread out. So the different facility managers reaching out to us constantly saying, hey, I'd like to try this, I'd like to do this, and we try to support that budget. And then finally, I know we take $8,000 out of the kids camp budget and spread art supplies through our centers. So those are different ways we support it, but you know, and we try to help out anytime a facility manager reaches out. We've tried to support their programs.
Okay. And then I heard you say each super center is going to have a theme. I thought John A. Patton was a super center.
No, our super centers are Hickson, Avondale will be a super centers, South Chat, and Brainerd are super centers. Johnny Patton's not listed as a super center, but it is one of our larger centers.
How do you get on that super center list?
Mainly, it's it's really kind of how we staff it and how many staff we have available. So just have to get more staffing so we can work on that. So, but it's hours of operation. Super centers open longer hours. They're open. They have more staff. They usually have more activities, and it's just kind of just the labels that have been put on them. So how that actually occurs and stuff, we would just have to, deem it necessary to have that as a super center, but then we'd also have to look at staffing.
Is there a reason it serves a pretty large population and they always have 100 kids at the camp? I mean, is that not a large?
It's a large center, but it's not one of them that's just, been labeled as a super center. So, no, I don't have that answered, but, I don't know why it has not ever been in the past, but historically it's not been listed as a super center.
Can we find the answer?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Yeah. So I think what happens in the youth and family development centers is really important. And we're getting ready to get educated on the budget. If you were to get a question like, what would it take to get what you need so that these kids' programs can be adequately staffed, will you be able to answer that question?
I'll be prepared.
Thank you. Will you be able to also answer it?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
answer it, yes.
Thank you.
Gil, would you change your mind?
My understanding, the super centers is mostly activities that's inside the center for its programs, correct?
It's that and the hours of operation.
Right. But most of all, how many programs you got for is tournaments and things of that nature too, correct?
Yeah, we try to, when we look at the super centers, since they're open longer hours, that's usually when we get a question about where we can host something. We try to look at those centers and try to focus it that way because they're open longer hours. They can support those requests.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jason. Appreciate it. And I guess we'll be adjourned till 6.